This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for creatives and entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online.
I rap 3 hours a day. The rest of my day, I do regular shit. I ride my bike. I go to the grocery store. As long as you stay consistent with it, you go win every time. I only do 3 hours a day. I'm not a rapper.
It's not about the business side. It's about how good my music is. And the better I make my music, the more people gravitate to it.
I just felt that clothing was to get the ideas out. I just felt the art world, it's like
too removed,
too limited.
Taking our creative passion and trying to pay the rent with it can be complex. It brings up tough ideas for a lot of creatives, like taking on other people's feedback on our work, and the dreaded spectre of that most feared and avoided concept for a lot of artists and creatives: compromise. But the reality of the situation is, taking our creative skills into a professional space can allow us to practice them in varied ways, pull us out of our comfort zone, and force us to learn to collaborate and remain flexible and open too.
Did you have any question about doing it?
I think that I had this feeling of like, okay, that's it, like of a knowing of that's what the next thing was.
Joaquin Phoenix talks about taking the role of Johnny Cash.
But of course, see, there's two different sides of yourself. Then there's the human part of you that's, you know, terrified. I'm gonna be humiliated. I'm gonna ruin somebody's thing. This is their life. Who am I to fucking do this? You know, all of that
seems intimidating.
I just knew that it's what I was doing.
Every month now, I'm going to be doing a video driven directly from the issues and struggles my paid community on Substack and Patreon are sending over to me. And when I reached out to that community the last time, one of the main things that came back was around the relationship between doing your creative practice in what we might call a pure, non-outcome focused way, and the alternative to that, trying to make this thing that we love and have a passion for produce some specific outcome.
I don't give a fuck about music. I just do this shit for money. Like,
I agree with you.
Like, get your bag. I love that. But like, I make music. I'm a music nerd and a musician. I care about this shit.
In a moment, we're going to hear a call that came in from one of the Patreon subscribers around this, along with looking at an email that I was sent over to. This will begin a discussion on how we can balance our creative vision with the outcomes we might be looking for, and the desire for many of us to make money from our work. We're going to look at how we can protect our vision whilst monetizing, as well as how we might find structured ways to move successfully through this path and figure out the balance here around when we are and aren't going to compromise on that vision, and when we are going to decide that things are just too far and we're going to have to say no. But before we jump into all this, I wanted to give a quick shout out to the sponsor for this video, and that's Squarespace. In a lot of creative roles, there's many different people who have the kinds of skills needed to do a particular job. Positioning yourself and making a great online presence for people to drop into and see what you can do can be so valuable. Squarespace's new design intelligence feature makes the whole process feel really natural and collaborative when you want it to be, empowering anyone to build a beautiful, personalized website tailored to their unique needs. I've spoken before about wanting to sell some of my writing through my website, and also experimenting with the custom invoice building features, which are going to be perfect for a lot of creative freelancers who are trying to build service businesses and invoice their clients in a way that feels streamlined and professional. So whatever you're building or planning to build, head over to squarespace.com and claim your free trial. And when you're ready to launch your design and go live, head to squarespace.com/creative minds to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Right, thanks to Squarespace again for supporting this video. And with that said, let's get into this then by starting off with the point of inception for this video idea. And that's the two responses that came in from the paid community when I asked what they were struggling with or wanted me to explore in a future video. And the first one is actually really exciting because it's the first time that a member from that paid community has taken the opportunity to send me the question in by voice memo. So to get this started, then let's go ahead and I'm gonna just play that now.
Hey Will, I love your videos. My friends and I were discussing this and I'd love your perspective on it. My friend makes YouTube videos and he would love to use copyrighted music in them, but he won't. He doesn't want to sacrifice the ad revenue. Meanwhile, people like Nikki Jakey include their ad reads as a comedic bit, and commenters will go, "This is the only ad that I won't skip." So, where's the line between monetization subtracting versus adding to a creative vision? And how do we move the needle more towards the latter?
This was such an interesting starting point, I thought, because Solar already highlights the balance or complexity that comes from both the friction that exists when you push for monetization, but also the more nuanced place where monetization or driving specific outcomes can actually add to the creative vision. Along with Solar then, I got another email when I put that call out forward. Yeah, this came from someone who supported my paid Substack for quite a long while now, and that's Natasha, who again wrote on the relationship she has to pushing for particular outcomes with her creative work and some of the friction around that. My question, Natasha writes, is something that I feel like your videos answer all the time, but my struggle is always with staying focused on the joy of creativity, desire to create versus worrying about outcome. Your channel helps me frequently to come back to center, but if you have any thoughts that come to mind to help maintain that direction, then I'd love it. Thanks again to both those people who sent that in, and you'll find Natasha and Solar's own creative projects linked in the description if you want to go and check them out. One reason why I knew I wanted to make a video about these ideas is because this friction around pushing for certain outcomes and managing your creative vision versus searching for those specific things that we want to get out of it is obviously really relevant in my own work. I love making these videos, for example, and I'm able to put my own creative skills into them in a really satisfying way, and earning some money from these, as well as earning money from freelancing with my creative skills in the past, has allowed me to amass huge amounts of time working with the tools that I love to work with, and learn from people as well who are just better at me at doing this. Here then we find the complexity from both the joy and motivation we can get from driving specific outcomes from some of our creative work, but also that friction that comes with any place where we try and turn something that we enjoy doing or have a passion for doing into a product, and maybe start to feel certain concerns that we need to deal with and pressures around making specific choices, like the one around music that Solar spoke of, which can leave us in the end feeling quite conflicted and a lot of negative feelings towards our creative work.
Because James is the creative director of Supreme. Then I came in as a creative director, first ever creative director.
Yeah. Did you feel second guessed?
Yeah, I was like creative director in his pocket, in the sense of I'll pull out Tremaine's what I want, his idea or opinion, but in the end it's what I want. So that was difficult, you know.
When I thought about Solar's question and the ideas around how much we value the outcomes of our projects over the purity of doing the work for the work's sake, I thought it could be useful to define with the project at hand if it's a business or a pure pleasure. I've spoken previously about being clear with our projects, what will define them as successful to us in the end, and being clear about if we're looking for specific outcomes for them that can be a useful part of that planning process. Doing that planning and getting that clarity at the start can inform then many decisions along the way and take away some of that conflict that we're going to feel.
Yeah.
But the clothing came after the art.
After, yeah.
Inspired by almost like the merch for the art.
Exactly. was making the pieces, and even now, whenever I have a new collection or new thing, I build it in my head on mood boards, sometimes physically as an art project. The whole Denim Tears thing is an art project, and I just felt that clothing was to get the ideas out.
A lot of this is going to come down to thinking about and getting clarity on those creative principles that are going to underpin that project. If we don't stick to these creative principles and we do cross those lines that we don't want to cross, that can be hugely devaluing and demotivating to the process of actually creating the work that we're making.
In the end, what really makes an artist great is how much fear do you lack? And a lot of the fear for artists starts coming in once the success happens. Or if the success doesn't happen. So that's the funny thing about success and not having success.
Yeah.
It can give you the same thing.
Yeah.
If you don't have the success.
You react. Either way you react instead of acting.
Yeah, so you can be like, okay, I'm making stuff and I'm fearless. It's working. Damn, should I keep making the same old stuff? Because I don't want to not keep being successful. You let fear creep in and you're gonna get weaker. If you're making stuff and it's not selling, or you're not getting the validation or attention you want, oh, maybe I should start making different stuff. It's the same thing. Mm-hmm. And being fearless doesn't mean you don't feel fear. It's just knowing that you have to walk through it. And that applies to everything. Yeah. Who you partner with, it's all choice.
Often this discussion with our creative vision can become complex. I have certain rules for myself about what kinds of companies I will and won't work with, along with obviously a host of other aims for this project in terms of what I'm trying to represent in the vision for this channel here. But although driving towards outcomes has to be done carefully, it's obvious that money coming into a creative project can be a huge unlock too. For example, if I was approached to partner with a company and have to use a particular song throughout the video which I didn't personally like, but the money they were going to pay me was going to allow me to make a really great or original piece of creative support, for example, that I wouldn't have the money to make otherwise, then I'd have to go back into those principles for this project and ask myself that question around whether endorsing that song was somewhere I'd have to say no or not.
Danny Brown talks about his comfort in bringing in elements to his songs that explicitly serve audience capture.
And really, like with the sex punchlines and stuff like that, that's like any race or creed or whatever you are could get that. It's like when my dog used to get sick or something, man, you know, I used to have to hide his pill, you know, I used to put his medicine in his food, I used to have to hide it in there a little bit, you know what I'm saying? That's all I'm doing, like, that's just to cover up for all the socially conscious things I'm gonna do. Because, you know, most of, like you said, those guys are boring.
I spoke in a recent video about the usefulness of holding our ideas about our work in a loose way so that we remain open and allow our approach to change over time if it wants to. Hard lines in the sand might make us feel good at the time, but sometimes this can drive us to close off and might actually be coming from a place of insecurity.
It was triggered by a person making a comment about something to do with work that didn't matter. You know, it was like to anyone else, they would hear that and it would just be like, okay, we'll deal with it next week, whatever.
Rick Rubin talks about the link between his own mental state and his ability to deal with feedback.
But for some reason, I took it in a way that I felt like the rug had been pulled out from under me. Even beyond the rational part of it, of understanding, you know, even after that problem that came up was solved, it somehow undermined something in me and made me feel very vulnerable in a way that I hadn't felt before.
You are watching Creative.
It's not necessary to look for outcomes like money or audience building, and we can build structures around our creative passions outside of those things that do set up good habits. But if you can get someone to pay you for using those creative skills and to practice that thing that you care about doing, then you will find that those 10,000 hours of practice that many people say that you're looking for will amass themselves almost automatically. Doing something for work can be useful in other ways too. It can make you more resilient and, as I said earlier, open to feedback, and also more likely to surround yourself with people who are better at these skills than yourself. It's also going to allow us to remain humble in a way that sometimes putting ourselves in a room on our own with some kind of creative passion might end up making us feel like we're special in some way that actually isn't helpful. There's countless artist stories that can see them working, especially in their more formative part of their career, using their creative skills as a paid daily practitioner, as opposed to some hugely pure creative visionary type way. One of the examples I was looking at recently is Francisco Goya, who was a painter, and when Goya went deaf in adulthood, his style of painting would change massively. But in every piece of work that came after that, and the unique voice and those unique images that Goya conjured, especially after going deaf, underpinning all of that great kind of, as I say, unique work was the technical skills that he'd built up from years beforehand as a salaried court painter, learning and practicing the trade.
Unlike murals, tapestries could be changed, but they had to be woven from designs, and making those designs was Goya's job. In time, he'd find this work a bore, and the tastes of the clientele restricted the range. He was expected to make idylls, happy scenes of modern city and country life, generally as led by the lower classes, on which the nobs and nobles could gaze with amused condescension. What was he learning from all this cartoon work? How to handle detail, action, expression, pose. All this fed into his later narrative paintings and his portraits as well.
Here we see that balance of many individual creative journeys, and the way it doesn't have to always be one way or another. And the best long-term thing for our journey, if we really want to get as good at these creative skills as we can, may often be to try to monetize them in certain ways if we like, but also retain spaces where we do make sure we're putting boundaries around the kind of work that really keeps that passion and fire in our belly. Some of the best advice I ever got about my own frustration around not being able to put enough time into my personal creative projects or push forward with the exact vision for certain things that I wanted to was to realise the idea that it didn't have to be all or nothing in my head. Often society can tell us, especially as artists or creatives, that we need to have that massive obsession or purity, and that we need to do that thing where we fully commit and go all in on our life goal or passion. But this really isn't going to be possible for most people, and we're going to lose so much if we continue to believe this. And telling ourselves that we have to remain completely fully committed to spending all our time trying to push forward with our creative goal, or it's not going to happen, is just massively oversimplistic, and isn't the reality of most working artists, even when they get deep into their career.
What is inspiring Larry June right now? So
what I do is, so I don't do studio. So what I first do is I clean my house up very neatly. I vacuum my floor, got a good Dyson. I wipe down my counters. I make me a fresh tea. Hot tea. Maybe a little Earl Grey tea or a chamomile. I'm talking about, do 10 push-ups. I might ride my bike for like a mile or two. and I get the inspiration, and I get in the booth and I start spitting like I'm missing a tooth. You know what I'm saying? Yes, sir. Since we on Rolling Stone, I gotta let y'all know, man, for everybody that want to feature, man, I only rap 3 hours a day. You know what I'm saying? I only rap 3 hours a day. I get in the studio at 6 o'clock, and I'm done around 9 o'clock in the morning. You know what I'm saying? So if you don't hit me between them hours, it can get ugly. Matter of fact, sometimes, though, it might take me 3 days to do one song, because I might just do, like, the intro of that motherfucker, then the next day. But the thing is consistency. So if I do 3 hours a day every day for 365 days, I just did outstanding numbers. You know what I'm saying? It ain't what you do, it's how you do it. You know what I'm saying? So as long as you stay consistent with it, you go win every time. I only do 3 hours a day. I'm not a rapper, man.
I want to ask you for some help now as I prepare for the next video that I'm going to do around having a full-time job or a part-time job and still trying to manage our creative passions. The question here that I'd hope that some people will come forward with their own advice in the comments is, do you have ways that help you manage the time you spend on your creative work with all the other aspects of your life? This could be habits, ways you frame your creative work in your mind, or maybe just examples of your routine and things that work for you, allowing you, as I said, to do all the other things you're probably responsible for in your life, whilst maintaining your creative passion and not constantly feeling frustration around not having enough time to put into it. If something does come to mind, hit me up in the comments below and I'll factor all of that stuff into the video that I'm going to be making around this issue. In a moment, I want to put on screen a previous video that I made that looks at ideas around self-discipline, which can run alongside these questions of routine and time management. But before that, a huge thanks to the paid community who helped to support these videos. Subscribers there got this video on early release, and also, as I said, have that ability to get in touch with me directly with whatever they're struggling with in their work, so that I can try and build videos to particularly suit their needs. And with all that said, then I'm dropping that video around self-discipline on the screen now if you want to check it out. And yeah, other than that, good luck in your own creative work and see you soon.